I think we finally found the problem with Jayson Tatum, who I think is having one of the best runs through the playoffs that we've seen out of Boston in some time. I mean, his performance it brings you back. I hesitate to say it's Bird-esque,
Uh-huh.
but it is that dominating superstar performance that Boston has lacked going back to the KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen days. And you're getting that out of Jayson Tatum. But we've seen him slipping in the last few weeks. I look at some of the scenes out of that Milwaukee series. And one of the things we've talked about a little bit is this problem across this league with guys complaining to the officials. And one of the things you saw in that Boston-Milwaukee series was too much Jayson Tatum complaining to the officials, falling to the floor while Milwaukee was running down, in a couple of cases hitting threes, getting layups that led to a Boston timeout. And what did we see last night in the third quarter? Boston comes out and just absolutely gets boat raced in the third quarter by Miami. And there was a good bit of that. There were 2-3 possessions there where Jayson Tatum turned the ball over and did not run back on defense, where Jimmy Butler picked his pocket and he didn't run back on defense. And you're starting to see, I don't know if that's a mental thing with Jayson Tatum, but you're starting to see that maybe Jayson Tatum likes Jayson Tatum a bit much. I don't know. We're going to see how he reacts in game 2. He's bounced back very well in these playoffs when he's had subpar performances. I would expect that in game 2. And in fact, I would expect Boston to win game 2. They really missed Marcus Smart. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I think this is the first time, Jake, that we've seen weakness really show itself in Jayson Tatum's game this year.
Yeah, I think that when you beat the opponents that he's beaten, I think sometimes you can get a little lax, and not to say that he's been lazy, not to say that he's not working hard, but I think that, you start to assume that you'll get that call from the official, or you start to assume that Jimmy Butler's not going to try and pick your pocket, or that the Tyler Heroes or whoever, whoever's playing is not going to try to get after you. And that's the hard part about being the best. When you're one of the best guys in the league, they're always going to send as much help as they can send, and they're always going to come after you. And I think that I tend to agree with you. I think game 2 does go to Boston. I think that that is very much a Boston thing to do, to win that second game on the road going home. So, I think I do think this is going to be a deep series. I think this is going to be a long one. I think, it's just getting started, but I think for them to win, Tatum mentally has to stay locked in, and I loved early in the game when he was forcing the issue and really getting to the rim and making them play, good defense or foul me, like he's putting them in that kind of position where it's like, hey, you're either gonna go up but not foul me and essentially let me score, or you're going to foul me and put me at the line. I'm going to get 2 anyway. And I love that out of Jayson Tatum. But I agree with you. Miami comes out in the third quarter, and really, it lasted most of the second half. Just comes out, locks in defensively, and shuts them down. And I think that's where, when that happens, when Miami does that, that's where you need Jayson Tatum. That's where you need, the Jaylen Browns to really kind of wake up and make some of those tougher shots. I don't need that. I don't need you to be Kobe in the first quarter. I need you to be Kobe halfway through the third when Miami went on a 10-0 run.
Yeah, and I think one of the conversations I think we need to have there very clearly is that this is one of those situations where I thought Boston was really good in the first half. Not really good. I thought they played well enough to win the game in the first half. They did not play well enough to win the game, certainly not in the third quarter and not in the fourth quarter. And I also think one of the things I really worry about with Boston, and I know we've talked about this a lot on the show already, but Derek White has to be more of a contributor. This is starting to get problematic for Boston. I mean, obviously you know who the guys are on this team that shoot a lot of threes. I mean, certainly we saw last night that Pritchard shot a lot of threes. 4 of 11 is probably not the number they were looking for. Right. But when you have Derek White 0 of 1 and he passed on a couple of opportunities to shoot threes, I think that's a problem. Obviously, Grant Williams only shooting 2 threes last night is a problem. Jayson Tatum 2 of 9. I wonder if this team doesn't rely too much on the 3, because I agree. I think when they came out of the gate, attacking the basket, really getting after it, I thought Jaylen Brown intentionally being a force on the glass was really a big part of their success early in this game. But the Boston Celtics have to figure out what they want to do offensively and consistently attack the basket, in my opinion. And maybe this is why when you have a young coach who is really going through his first playoff series, and this isn't the opening round anymore, this is the Eastern Conference Finals, and you're going up against, I think, the most disrespected team in the NBA playoffs, the Miami Heat. I think you're going up against one of the most underrated players in the probably the past 5 years in the postseason, in Jimmy Butler. I think a lot of people forget how good he was in the bubble. Now, last year he wasn't very good, and didn't they get swept out of the first round? But Jimmy Butler is a big-time player in big-time games. Like, that's a guy that you know is going to show up and contribute. And I think there's a lot of people around the league who just assumed that Boston was going to be better than Miami. Well, I got news for you. I think Miami and Boston are very equal basketball teams. You look at the balance that the Miami Heat bring to the floor on a nightly basis, and I don't sit here and profess to be the biggest Tyler Hero fan, because I'm certainly not. But he has stepped his game up this year, there's no doubt. Defensively, there aren't many teams that can rival Boston defensively. Miami may be a slight bit better than Boston is defensively. You look at the way that Miami pressed up to the half-court stripe last night. That's where all those turnovers changed the third quarter.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the post. Now, granted, there were some really bad passes, and Jayson Tatum had 2 of the worst turnovers that you could imagine in a playoff game. But it was Miami pushing up and pressuring the ball as it came over the timeline. And I think that was a big part of why Miami was so successful in the second half.
Yeah, and I think that Miami. So I guess the first thing I would say is Eric Spoelstra is very seasoned, tenured, been through it a ton. Like these moments and these runs, like when Boston's going to do its thing, Spoelstra's not going to be worried. He's not going to be stressed. I mean, he's been through enough of these games where it's not surprising that, hey, Miami came out slow last night and you're down. I think they were down like 13 at one point or whatever in the first half. Like they were down, and then they come back to win, and they do that on defense. And that is kind of like quintessential Heat basketball. And I think that's the pushing up to the half court line, the just the aggressiveness that they play with. They're only able to do that because of the athleticism through the roster. And I know, the point I want to make here is, like, I know obviously we talk a ton of Jazz on this show, and with them being eliminated, we're not right now. But when you watch the Heat, or even when you watch the Celtics, like when you watch them play defense, watch how fluid it is. Watch how much they're able to move. I mean, you're getting up to essentially the half court stripe and making it uncomfortable for whoever they decide to bring the ball up. That's key defensively. I mean, hell, there was even a whole narrative last week about how Chris Paul, when he's pressured full court, does not have nearly the game that he does when you just let him bring it up. So I think it's a great point, and that's why I say this is going to be a really deep series, because both of these teams are very athletic. They're very good defensively. You're just going to go back and forth, and that's why I think this is a proper Eastern Conference Finals this year.
You mean this is why? Anyway, the point is,
yeah.
So that was a BYU reference.
I see.
You didn't get
Got it.
Anyway, the point is,
got it.
I think Boston wins the series. If after game one, I just don't think we've seen Boston melt down the way they did in the third quarter very often, and I think they miss Marcus Smart. Obviously, Al Horford would have had a role to play in this series. He's in health and safety protocols. So you're probably not going to see him for another week or so, but you really need to get Marcus Smart healthy and back on the floor with this foot thing. My guess is you're going to see that. I just think he's such an integral part of that team, especially defensively. And, he is going to be able to defend across multiple positions against Miami. And I think that's huge. But again, I go with the Jimmy Butler mantra. I think Jimmy is wildly underrated in this league.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you just don't talk about, and he was a problem in his career. But I think getting dumped by Philadelphia changed Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler forced his way out of Chicago and Minneapolis, and I think Jimmy Butler thought that he was the guy in Philly. And I think they dumped him. And I think that he took that very personally.
Definitely he did. No doubt about it.
And I don't think there's any problem with him taking that personally. Hell, if you're a professional, you want to take that personally.
Yeah.
I think you saw that with his yell at Tobias Harris going in the locker room the other night when they ended that Philly series. I think you're seeing him wear that And I think that makes him very dangerous. And I think when you look across that lineup, I think Bam Adebayo delivered last night. We've talked a lot about bigs in this league and the role that a five has to play on a basketball team. I think you saw that out of Bam Adebayo last night. I think his ability to play defense and block shots is unquestioned, but I also think his ability to get into the mix and give you 10 points, 4 boards, and assist, 4 block shots.
Yeah.
I mean, they got 10 blocks out of their starting 5 last night.
Well, and that was one of the biggest adjustments from first half to second half. I mean, it was one of these things where in the first half, everybody expected Miami to come out slow, because they hadn't played in a minute, and you kind of got to get back into the groove. So nobody was surprised that Boston had a bit of a lead. But I think what really happened here is Miami goes to the locker room at the half. And they're just like, hey, we got to turn it up here. We got to turn it up defensively. First half's over. They had their time, but now it's our time. And so what that looks like for Miami, and specifically with Bam, is, he's going to get that block. I think you said 4 blocks last night. He's going to get that block. He's then going to run down in transition. He's going to set that pick, but then he's going to get the roll to the basket going. And that's what's so impressive about Bam to me, is that whether it's Tyler Hero with the ball in the pick and roll, whether it's Jimmy, earlier in the year, whether it was Kyle Lowry when Kyle was playing, like Bam has great chemistry with all of these guys. And that's why I think you see their team defense is so good, because they play together offensively and defensively. And that's tough to stop.
Well, if you're going to have 10 steals and 12 blocks and you're going to create 16 turnovers, it's going to be difficult to beat you. And I think that's what Miami relies on, that kind of defense. I don't know. My opinion is Boston played really crappy basketball last night. And if I'm a Celtics fan, I'm not concerned yet. If I'm a fan of the Boston Celtics, I am not concerned about this series. I obviously don't like what I saw out of Jayson Tatum last night. I don't like what I saw out of the defense. There were some moments where I think you really understand why Marcus Smart's a defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
I don't like what I saw out of them defensively. But there was just that thing where I don't know if it was a lack of intensity. I think it's very difficult to play energetic basketball with coming out of a series like you came out of with Milwaukee with 1 day of rest.
Yep.
I think it's very difficult to be intense, but to just have Jayson Tatum turn and throw the ball and not even look, and that's an easy turnover. To have Jimmy Butler walk up behind Jayson Tatum and simply take the ball from him, that's an easy turnover. Like those things tell me that perhaps Boston is mentally tired. But I'm telling you, watching game 2, how many times does Jayson Tatum trot up the floor bitching at an official and Miami winds up with an open look or a layup?
Yeah.
Because that's got to come to an end right now. And I think one of the tests of this Boston team, frankly, is who's going to say that to Jimmy Butler? Well, I don't think you need to say that to Jimmy Butler, because he's a guy that's a killer in the playoffs. So on Boston's side, who's going to say that to Jayson Tatum? Because we don't know if JT's a killer in the playoffs yet.
I think Marcus Smart would be that guy. Honestly, I think he's one of the only guys on that team that'd be able to say that to Jayson Tatum. And I think that, I think it's interesting you say we don't know if Jayson Tatum's a killer or not. I feel like that's pretty on point. Like, I feel like Jayson Tatum has had big moments. I think it was, I don't think it wasn't last year. I think the year before, where he's got that dunk on LeBron and that whole exchange. And, like he's had his moments in the postseason, but at the same time, they got to get to the NBA Finals. I think for this, because there's a lot of talk about how this is one of the best postseason runs, or this could be one of the best postseason runs ever out of a player. But I got news for you. You got to beat Miami. You got to get to the NBA Finals first. And I think, the scary thing is Jimmy can just rise up over you and hit a mid-range shot on your best player, and there's nothing you're doing about that. So, yeah, I do think Boston's got to play turnover-free as possible basketball. You can't just be gifting Miami 6, 7, 8, 9 extra possessions a game, because they're going to make you pay.
Well, it's 16.
16
they turned the ball
night.
over. They turned the ball over 16 times last night and gave up 19 points.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, you only lost by 11. So, I mean, cut your turnovers in half. The other thing is, by the way, real quick, not to, get too far into the minutia, but at what point do teams in this playoff season start making free throws? Because teams that are losing playoff games are missing free throws, and it's killing them. Like I look at Boston last night, 24 of 32 You missed 8 free throws, 75%. You lost by 11 points. So control what you can control. Don't turn the ball over 16 times and give up 19 points. Don't give away 8 points at the free throw line when Miami is 30 of 34 for 88%. Like, if Boston cleans this stuff up, and it's not little. I almost said cleans this little stuff up. The turnovers and the free throws are not little.
Yeah.
You got to make your free throws. And I think if Boston cleans that up, that's why I said I just don't feel like this is some catastrophic loss that has ended this series or some statement game out of Miami. Yeah. Miami played well. They defended their home court as they need to. But I think Boston, if they can get Marcus Smart back and if they can clean some of this up, and certainly Jaylen Brown can't go 6 of 10. And if you look at the guys that missed free throws on this team, it's Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum missed 2. Jaylen missed 4. Robert Williams was 6 of 7. I thought he played very well.
Yeah.
But, again, they got to clean this little stuff up. You got to get better three-point shooting on a Derek White if that's possible. And Grant Williams has to shoot at least 5 threes a game for them to win.
Yeah, agreed.
He's got to shoot at least 5 threes a game. So, anyway, and then, of course, the main course is tonight, which is Golden State. And I'm super stoked about this series. Golden State and Dallas. Took a lot of heat on the YouTube channel in the comments section over what I said about Luka being a little bitch the other morning. And I know people are upset that I said, oh, Luka's a little bitch and his mom's hot and I'd smash.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I actually never said that. What I said was that Luka's performance in Game 7 against the Suns wasn't special to the point where that's why they won the game. And people lost their minds over that. You understand that in that Game 7 against Phoenix, Spencer Dinwiddie had a historic performance. Second all-time most points scored by a bench player in a Game 7 ever. Ever. Spencer Dinwiddie, in my opinion, was the guy who had the special performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep going back to this, and it's what I say about Jimmy Butler 3 minutes ago. Jayson Tatum with Boston, Steph Curry with Golden State, Luka Doncic with Dallas. Those guys always get their 30 points, it seems like. Those guys are always right up there. What did JT have last night? Jayson Tatum had 29 points last night. Your best player is going to score 30 points in a big playoff game. You would expect that, right? To me, it's always the secondary guys. Like, I'm telling you now, Golden State needs more points from Draymond Green. He's got to perform tonight. In my opinion, the matchup in this series, obviously it's going to be Luka against whoever they rotate to him and whoever they switch to him.
Probably Draymond.
Right? But Draymond Green's got to score points. He has got to, in my opinion, have an impact on this series at the offensive end because I think Draymond's defense is fine. I think defensively, Golden State matches up quite well with Dallas.
Yeah.
The question for Dallas, and I know that Luka's a fucking god, and oh my God, he's amazing, and who's the secondary player that's going to step up for them? Because Spencer Dinwiddie, as we all know here in Utah, was trash a lot of that Utah series.
Yeah.
He was not a good three-point shooter. And then he eliminates the Suns with a 30-point game that largely came from the three-point line.
And that's kind of who he is as a guy.
So, but my question is, who's the secondary player that steps up? What do you get out of Jalen Brunson in this series? Because Golden State's got a lot of length at the guard position, and I think it's going to be more difficult for Jalen Brunson to operate in the paint in this series. Because the thing that Golden State does, and they're not an elite defensive team, but they're very good defensively because they have guys who are very similar to each other in that they can switch. And you're not going to have these awkward DeAndre Ayton who doesn't want to play defense on Luka Doncic moments.
Yeah.
You're not. When you run Draymond Green at the 5, one of the luxuries is you can switch him on to Luka, and that's not going to be the end of the world, right? So what does Maxi Kleber do in this series? What is a guy like Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie? Where is, in my opinion, I still think you're waiting for a Bullock to step up and have a huge game.
Yeah.
Because that really hasn't happened since the Utah series.
Well, it's going to be required to beat Golden State. I mean, you're going to need those guys.
But what about Dorian Finney-Smith? Like, all of these guys have been very quiet recently. Very quiet. Jalen Brunson had some nice moments in the Phoenix series, but wasn't quite the same player he had been against Utah, right? Well, the Jazz are not a good defensive team. Like, okay, we can understand that. But you got a special performance out of Spencer Dinwiddie to beat Phoenix, right? And historically, that's the other thing a lot of people don't talk about in Game 7. That was a historically bad performance out of the Phoenix Suns in Game 7.
Yeah.
Historically bad. Like, futile, historic futility out of the Phoenix Suns in that game. You're not getting that from Golden State, in my opinion. So you're going to have guys step up and play at a significant level if you're the Dallas Mavericks, and you haven't seen that yet this postseason from Dorian Finney-Smith. You haven't seen that consistently since the Utah series out of Jalen Brunson. Maxi Kleber. Like, who's the guy? That's my biggest question tonight: is who steps up for Dallas?
Yeah, and I think it's super relevant, and I think it's going to be it's almost. I mean, it's going to be required in every game of the series. You're gonna have to have. And whether it's Brunson for 2 of those games or whether it's, a different guy each game, they're going to have that second guy give them 25-ish or more. Like that's just going to be required. But I think another huge factor is pace of play.
Yes.
Dallas loves to play slow. Luka loves to get his one-on-one matchup like you were just saying and kind of play that way. And that's not who Golden State is. Golden State, it's like I honestly think the Memphis series with Golden State was a true test of their absolute ability to play defense. That was a very physical series, run up and down, like took a toll on your body type series. And so if I'm Golden State, what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to play really good defense, but I want to get out and I want to run and I want to tire out Luka and I want to get in his head because that's what we haven't seen in this postseason yet. We haven't seen a team yet get in Luka's head, get him frustrated, and get him into that place where he's not productive. He
is not a well-trained athlete, Luka Doncic. And I think one of the things that not a lot of people talk about is he came into this season out of shape. He did not come into this season in the best shape of his life, dealing with that calf injury. Like, I think if Golden State can get out and play with pace, you can take advantage of Luka. And I also think that he's a very emotional player on the best of times and the worst of times. And I think if you can hit a lot of threes and you can force him into the paint. And the other question I want to have or want to talk about with Golden State is how dirty are the dogs going to be in the paint? You know what I mean? Like how physical is Golden State willing to be with Luka? Because one of the missed opportunities in the Phoenix series multiple times, and this is another knock on DeAndre Ayton, you had opportunities to really rake the arms of Luka Doncic. And when you get physical with Luka, he does not like it, and usually it takes him off his game. But we haven't seen anybody get physical with Luka Doncic. Utah certainly didn't do it. The Suns certainly didn't do it. And my question is, does a guy like Draymond Green have any hesitation to put a forearm or a swipe down into Luka's arms? Because I don't think he does.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that, if you get physical, and I am not advocating for dirty play in any way, shape, or form, but if you'll get physical with Luka Doncic in the paint, make him pay for every layup that he wants, I think that is absolutely one route to getting him off his spot.
How much, as part of that, though, like how much risk is there in the way the game's being officiated? Because I think we've seen there's been a lot of these flagrants called that, frankly, just, in my opinion, shouldn't have been flagrants. I mean, Tatum had one, I think it was against the Bucks. It might have been game 6 or 7 where, he's just going up, his natural motion going up to the rim. And I think it was Connaughton that he hit in the face with his elbow, but it's not on Tatum. Connaughton's face is like right next to his arm. So I agree with you. Yes, get physical with Luka and try to beat him up. But also, how do you, based on the way it's being officiated, how do you kind of find that balance? And I think it's one of those things where you kind of have to spread out the fouls.
Oh, almost. It's risky. I mean, you anytime you get physical in this game, you're risking a flagrant. I think guys like Draymond are professionals. I mean, like, he knows how to commit a foul, and I think you have to commit professional fouls. I mean, you cannot hit a guy in the head or neck. You can't, because it's going to be a flagrant foul. I mean, they have shown that they are going to protect players going to the rim, but I think you absolutely have to get physical. All right, let's get some of your thoughts in here. Rudy Sanchez, Greg Hawkins, what's up? he went back to BYU, Greg Hawkins did. He said, teams cancel games. BYU canceled Utah State. Utah canceled BYU. It's understandable. Absolutely. Connor Jensen, what's up? He says they only have 2 non-con games left after the cancellations, and I think it's like Arkansas and SUU or something stupid like that. So you're going to need to find another one. Jeremy Bolton, good morning to you. Big Dog O-Town says, I tried to tell y'all, Heat and Warriors, Final Butler is a bona fide beast. He is.
Shout out to Mo Bamba.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler in the finals is a load. I think he's having a great playoff run. I really do. He's very clearly trying to prove a point. So yeah, Big Dog, I give you a lot of credit for that. What's up, Gabe Ledley says, my brothers from other mothers. Yes, Little Lope, by the way, is having quite the athletic season, I see. As he's, I believe Gabe's little guy is playing for a championship in baseball, if I remember right. James Knight says, welcome back, part-time casuals. What's up? And Garcia, good morning to you. He says, more points from Green. LOL, he's a triple single guy, my friend. Well, they're going to need him to score points.
Yeah.
They are going to need him to contribute offensively. And I'm not saying they need 20 points from him because they don't. But he is going to be open at the three-point line.
It's the timely three.
Yeah,
it's what it's always been.
He is going to be open, and by the way, he is going to have opportunities to finish on the break in this series as well. Because let's be honest, Golden State's at their best when he gets the rebound and is running.
Yes,
he's going to have opportunities to finish because Dallas is going to have to aggressively attack the three-point line defensively. They are going to have to really try to push guys off their spot and close out threes. And Draymond's going to have open looks because of that. Because whether it's obviously Steph and Clay, but no matter who you have there, you've got to get them off because Golden State shoots a three very well.
And that's the magic of their team. I mean, you were talking a lot about how Dallas needs its role players to be productive, and I think it's this thing where it's essentially Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock versus Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga in this series, and who's going to be more impactful, who's going to play the better defense, who's going to get to the line more in those minutes where, you've got the Lukas and the Stephs and the Clays not in the game. And that ultimately is where I feel like a series of this magnitude is decided. Because, again, you got to remember, Dallas is, with a Jason Kidd-led team, Dallas knows how to strategically play a game to make it so they're playing to their advantage. That's what I felt like Phoenix did a really piss-poor job of in their series. They played Dallas Mavericks basketball instead of playing Phoenix Suns basketball the whole series, which is why Dallas won.
Yeah, and I think when you compare Golden State and Dallas, the depth is definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have a prolific scorer in Poole coming off the bench. You're going to have, who's healthy, who's not, but the Otto Porters of the world. Like, you're going to have guys coming off the bench for Golden State. And this is why I ask about the role players for Dallas. I mean, when you don't have the guy coming off the bench, you can't have guys like Maxi Kleber in this series having a bad series. You can't have Spencer Dinwiddie score 10 points in a game. Like, he's just too important.
Yeah.
Because, again, Luka's going to get his 30. That's who that guy is. He is going to get his 30. He's going to piss you off. He's going to flop. He's going to, do all the talking to your fans. And you're going to hate Luka Doncic. That's just who the guy is.
Yeah.
But there's two things that are sure in this series. Luka's mom is going to be hot. And you and I both know that somebody else for Dallas is going to have to step up.
Yep.
And I'm curious who that's going to be. Because, again, I think they're better off if it's Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
If Jalen Brunson gets hot and scores 20, I'd rather, if you're a Dallas fan, frankly, I think you would want, Brunson and Dinwiddie to go off. But that has not been who they are.
Yeah, and I think they've struggled to find the balance between Brunson and Doncic when they're both on the floor, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, Brunson had a hell of a series against the Jazz. Then he rolls up in Phoenix and isn't really able to do too much. And then they kind of went away from it because Luka had come back. And so now, like, I really do feel like them playing the Warriors, it really is going to test them to the highest level. Because, again, the Warriors, are very balanced. They have a lot of ball movement in the offense. They run really well. Like, they do a lot of things that are going to test your ability. And it really puts the onus on guys like Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie is different than Brunson and Dorian Finney-Smith and Bullock. Dinwiddie is a guy who needs to come off the bench literally every single game in this series and just put the ball in the hole. That has to happen for them to win. If he has that 10-point game,
Yeah.
it's over.
I also wonder what do we see out of Kuminga in this series?
A lot of fouls. That's what I think you see. I think you see a lot of switching on to Luka, and I think he's going to get him into foul trouble.
But how many DMPs will he take in this series? It's interesting to see how many minutes and how Steve Kerr uses him, because looking at their depth, I mean, you don't have a lot of guys, and everybody trims their rotations for the deeper you get, the fewer guys you're playing, but if Otto Porter is inconsistently available to you, can you really beat the Dallas Mavericks playing 7-8 guys, right? Can you really beat the Dallas Mavericks playing Poole and Lee as your only guys off the bench? And maybe this is where we finally see that they miss Peyton. Like that people have not ruled him out to come back. I think it'd be a miracle. But can you really live playing 7 guys more than 10 minutes? Can you really? That's a question that I have about Golden State. And I wonder if Jonathan Kuminga is a guy that Steve Kerr just doesn't trust yet. He's still a very young player, but it'll be interesting to see, how does that work out? And the other question I think is interesting is, how many minutes does Looney play on a nightly basis in this series?
Yeah, I think that matchup between Looney and Kleba is going to be one to watch, because Looney's no slouch defensively, and Kleba's not just going to have wide open look after wide open look.
And you're not going to play a big. Dallas doesn't have a typical 5 center guy.
Yeah.
That's not what their team is built around. And they're going to play a lot of what has commonly been coined as 5 out. I think you're going to play small ball. And your bigs, even the Davis Bertans of the world, or any of these guys that are big for Dallas, they don't really play big. They're wing players. So this is the battle. I think Jason Kidd has surprised a lot of people with his adjustments and the way that he's come into his own during this playoff run. But you're going up against one of the best X's and O's coach in the NBA, and Steve Kerr, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, Steve's had a lot of time here to prepare. He's had days to prepare for this series. So I'm interested to see how Steve Kerr plays his rotations.
And
I think that's going to be one of the more interesting things to watch tonight.
And if I'm Steve Kerr, I'm going after Luka on the defensive end. Who? Think about it. With the roster that Steve Kerr has to work with, who is Luka going to keep up with? Because you're not putting Luka on Steph, obviously. You're definitely not putting Luka on Klay Thompson, in my opinion, because Klay's going to run around a ton.
Wiggins?
I guess Wiggins, right? I don't know. I could see a scenario where you have Luka, potentially matched up with Draymond for a few possessions. You're essentially trying to, if you're Jason Kidd, you're trying to keep Luka out of a situation where he's got to run his ass off on defense, and then he's too tired to play offense.
Yeah, I'd be switching him to Steph. That would be, I'd run pick and roll to switch Luka onto Steph and wear his ass out, because again, Luka Doncic is not a well-conditioned athlete. He is a guy who likes his food and his drink, and he is vulnerable if you can make him work hard defensively.
Totally.
So we'll see what that looks like. And by the way, you already know that the guy has a calf thing, because he's not fully healed from that calf. He may be playing at a very high level, but those calf injuries don't go away until you have months to recover.
They just seem to pop up at the worst time.
Yeah. So, I'd be trying to switch, and my guess is that you're going to see Luka play a bunch of different roles here. And Golden State can switch multiple times. They run sets to get the matchup that they want. And Steph is fantastic. He might be the best off-ball player in this league, Steph Curry. He is really good away from the basketball. So, yeah, I think that's a very good point. Let's get some of your thoughts in here. Jeremy Bolton says, you'd think Dinwiddie is the next Caruso or something.
You're casual.
I don't see how you watch the Dallas Mavericks, especially in Game 7, and really in the Jazz series as well. I don't know how you watch Dallas and don't see his importance to that team.
Yeah.
That Game 7 that he put up, that's one of the best Game 7s for a bench player in the history of the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
If you look at the numbers, it's a historic performance. That's the second most points ever in a Game 7 by a bench player, ever. I think Eddie Johnson had 34 and Dinwiddie had 30. Number 2 all time. He is really capable. He is a guy that is very important to them. If he's hitting threes, Luka's a far more lethal player.
Yeah.
If
No
Spencer
doubt.
Dinwiddie's hitting threes, man,
No
they
doubt.
are tough to beat. And Garcia, good morning, too. He says Golden State had their own historically bad performance in the second round against Memphis. They were very up and down. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
They were really up and down against Memphis. And that's why I don't have a high confidence level that Golden State's going to win this series. I think it's going to be a very close series. And again, anytime that you rely on the three ball, you're susceptible to drought. And I look at Golden State, they're best when they're running and they're shooting threes. That's when they're at their best. And if we learned anything from the Jazz this season, when the three ball goes away from a team that lives on the three ball, you're in real trouble. You are in real trouble. And I think the only thing that potentially helps Golden State in that light is that Dallas is heavily relying on the three ball as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that Golden State does a good job defending corner threes, or they have the ability to do good work defending corner threes, which is where Dallas gets really dangerous. So we'll see. I mean, I think Dallas has the weapons. I think they have across the board, whether it's Dinwiddie, whether it's Bullock, whether it is Dorian Finney-Smith. They have guys that Jalen Brunson shoots the three well. He just doesn't take a lot of them. You know, they have a lot of guys who can beat you and on that Dallas bench. And I don't know who it's going to be, but they're going to need somebody outside of Luka Doncic to have a really good series.
Yeah, if the Warriors are going to win this series, it's in 6. If Dallas is going to win, it's going to have to be in 7. I just don't see any other way for Dallas.
We'll see. That Luka switching thing is I think it's the key to the series. How many matchups does Luka Doncic win or lose?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, Rudy Gobert versus Luka Doncic, too many times if you're Dallas went to Rudy Gobert. But then when it really counted in the postseason, almost all the time it went to Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
So Luka's pretty good in these situations if you haven't noticed. I mean, he is that he's 30 points a night.
I mean, he's a killer in my opinion. I mean, he's a scorer, man. He makes it look easy.
Absolutely.
Like I'm with you. I hate the antics. I hate how he kind of goes about it, but there's no doubt. Like, and that's kind of why I think a lot of people said that Phoenix performance was special just because of the way, you know, it went down. You know, like it used to be that, you know, like the LeBron level player would just bully you and get to the cup. And now this guy's coming out and doing it from, you know, 30 feet away, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. You know, that's a really good point. James Knight says, I'm taking bets on which game Draymond gets tossed from. Does that happen in this series? Because they've talked for so many years now, several years, especially since Clay got hurt. We got to get back. We got to get back. We want to get back. We want to get back. This is not who we are. Well, now you're in the Western Conference Finals being who you've been for a long time. And does Draymond Green rein that in a little bit? Because you're not going to Draymond Green and telling him to rein it in. You're not. That you do not want Draymond Green playing any less than on the edge, right? Like you want that guy on the edge of a technical foul every possession. Mm-hmm. He's going to wave his hands. He's going to yell and scream. That's how he plays basketball. But you need him in these games. And James, I actually think that's a really good point. Does he get ejected in this series?
And can he get into Luka's head? Draymond Green
without getting ejected.
Yeah, Draymond Green, man, is one of the best in the league at you know, not necessarily the quality of the trash talk, but just how he goes about it and his ability to get you off your game.
The mental game.
Yeah.
Draymond Green is very good at getting under your skin.
Yeah.
He is it's why he's so respected on the floor.
Yeah. Because
he is a force to be reckoned with no matter if he's got the ball or not. He's difficult. Let's see. Comment dump. Jordan McDonald says Luka's a little bitch, but he is a top 5 player. Yeah, he is.
Fucking A.
Yeah, he is. I am not a Luka Doncic fan. That's not a secret.
Yeah.
Like I hate the flopping. I cannot stand it. And I cannot stand, like last night, Jayson Tatum, and I can't remember who it was. Dwayne Dedman, maybe, or Bam Adebayo. He swipes down and hits a guy in the face. Like he hit him in the face. They blew the whistle. And what did Jayson Tatum do? Jumping up and down, waving the finger, review it. You hit the fucking guy in the face, dude.
Yeah, how is this even a question?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And the issue with that is, and this is what Luka does all the time. It's what Rudy Gobert and Bojan Bogdanovic do all the time. They commit a foul, they bitch and whine about it, And then the officials after the game go back and look at that, and they know that you made contact.
Yeah.
So it hurts you. So that's it. The flopping fake call outrage thing is a pet peeve of mine. I cannot stand it. I
would just rather guys
hate
roll
it.
up and get their money's worth. Like, if you're going to hit a guy in the face, get your money's worth,
It's one of the things, if you look at who your favorite player is. They always do it. Like Devin Booker's one of my favorite players. I hate that he whines at the officials all the time.
Yeah.
I hate that he's always waving his finger. Shut up and play basketball, man.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a star on Luka's level, LeBron's level, Kobe used to do it all the time too, and I hated it. Like, when you're on that level, there's no reason to be complaining to the official. You're getting a ton of calls. Rudy Gobert gets a ton of calls. They never call the illegal screen. They never call him for pulling the jersey.
But I think that gets discounted, right? Like, if you're Rudy, you don't put weight on the fact that they're not calling the illegal screen and all the antics. Like that's the problem for these guys. They're not thinking, oh, well, hey, I'm basically abusing this guy in the pick, but they're not calling that. So I'm not going to complain about this. Or I'm
under the basket grabbing a guy's jersey.
Yeah.
And they're not calling me for that. Like, I think we've lost hold of the art of politics on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that I just can't stand. And everybody does. You'll see it on both sides. It's why Draymond Green drives me crazy. Constantly yelling, constantly waving his arms at the officials. Like, at some point, can we just play basketball?
Yeah.
Like, we waste so much time on reviews. In critical moments, we're spending 3, 4, 5 minutes looking at a play. Bro, if it took you 3, 4, 5 minutes to review it, don't overturn it.
And this is kind of why I'm glad you don't get, like, I'm on the fence about this. But from that standpoint, I'm actually kind of glad that you don't get the review back, because I think that makes the use of the review dynamic. You have to think about, okay, I only get to do this one time. Do I really want to use it on a Jayson Tatum? Hey, I didn't hit this guy in the face when it's pasted, when your arm is pasted all over his damn face.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting thing that goes on in games right now.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting. Brandon Whiteside, good morning to you. He says, who had the better season? 1 seed Suns losing in the second round in Game 7 or 5 seed Jazz with locker room. What are you talking about? The Suns had a far better season than the Jazz did. I saw this yesterday on Twitter too. Oh, it makes me feel better that the Jazz lost to, no, it doesn't make you feel better. The Jazz were trash this year. It was a year too long. You wasted a season of Donovan Mitchell. I mean, like, it shouldn't make you feel better about anything.
Yeah.
Like what Dallas did, like, it shouldn't make you feel better. Like, if you're a Jazz fan, nothing Dallas is doing now makes you feel better about how bad you were, about how many wrong decisions management made. Nothing should make you feel better. And there's no conversation around, did the Jazz have a better season than the Suns?
Yeah, that's not really it.
There's no conversation around that. The money the Suns made just in more playoff games should hurt your feelings. Like, that's the thing that you don't understand. And like with these uniforms that are going to be released next week, right? Because, I was talking to my Jazz guy yesterday, and he was saying, the uniforms are going to come out and the world's going to end. Like, literally, the Jazz know how much people hate their new uniforms
already.
And I straight up asked, hey, are the black and yellow things that, and he just wouldn't talk to me about it. He's like, you have to wait till next week, which was telling me they're coming out next week without saying, hey, they're coming out next week.
Uh-huh.
The money that the Jazz are not going to make on that new uniform, on top of the money that they didn't make playing playoff games, on top of, like, financially, this year has been a disaster for the Utah Jazz. So there's no, hey, the Suns had a better year. That's not even a conversation. Eric says Kuminga won't play at all. I hope you're wrong. I would love to see him he's a really important figure for this team. Whether they trade him or keep him, he's going to have a big impact on you. So I think that's hugely important. Tanner Plummer says, my brain tells me the Warriors win the series, but my gut tells me the Mavs win.
Hey, guys.
I think that if you're a betting man, you're going with the Warriors.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a case. Jeremy Bolton says, can't believe I forgot Hey Bear and Double Team Book. What's Double Team Book got to do with anything? Eric and Raleigh says, I think the Warriors are going to play Bielitsa 12 to 16 minutes a night in this series. Well, we'll see. You know, we'll see. They have options. They have options.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the way that they have built this team, you know, I mean, everybody that they play, their first 6 guys can all be lethal. I mean, probably not Looney. So let's call it 5 of their 6 guys.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously, Steph, Clay, Poole, you know, are all guys that can score 30 points in a game.
They can end the game.
You look at Andrew Wiggins. You know, he's a guy that can score 30 points in a game. I mean, you got 4 guys that are capable of 30-point performances on any night. They all shoot threes. They all get to the rim. Like,
they can all defend Luka.
You know, like, they're all like, the Golden State is deep. Like, they're dangerous. They've 4 of their top 5 guys and 5 of their top 6 guys, really, including Draymond, because I think Draymond is absolutely a guy that beats you whether he scores or not. Like, his point Dre, running up and down the floor, the rebounding, the defense, like the mental game, like 5 of their top 6 guys, and I only exclude Kevon Looney, 5 of their top 6 guys are absolutely difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
So Golden State is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Let's see. George Mashika says Curry, Thompson, Kuminga, Wiggins, and Green will be your starting 5. You're not starting Kuminga. I mean, you're not. There's too many holes in his game. I mean, I guess you could do that. We'll see. I don't know. I'd be surprised if that happened. I'd really be surprised. You know, Eric and Raleigh says you want Green on that wall. You need Green on that wall. Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you absolutely do. You know, it is. You know, it is, and that's the thing with Draymond is that it
love-hate relationship, bro.
Man, I just cannot stand some of the antics from Draymond Green. But much like Luka, the guy is really impactful. You know, if you look at any of these guys that we're talking about, they're really impactful, good players. You know, none of these get like Luka Doncic is just a superstar.
Yeah, no way around it.
I hate the way he plays the game.
Yeah,
I don't like the flopping and the whining. And Draymond Green, not a superstar, but he is a star. He's a stud. Hate the way he plays the game, the whining, the complaining, can't stand it. I mean, you cannot get ejected from a playoff game. And I think Eric and Raleigh or whoever said it, you know, you guys are right. I mean, there's a chance he gets ejected here. James Knight taking bets on what game he gets ejected from. Like, it just can't happen. So it makes me crazy. It truly does. Rudy obviously went to Stockton School of pick setting and jersey pulling. Yeah, that's true. Jazz fans will hate the new uniforms until they buy them. I don't know. This new Jazz uniform is not one that grows on you, in my opinion. Like, it is.
Yeah, it's very clean cut, kind of simplistic vibe.
Oof. Like, it is
We'll
all black with simple white or yellow lettering. I'm not convinced that's it. Man, I'd be stunned if that's it.
Well, and the thing is the organization has good heritage in uniforms.
Oof.
Like, you have good uniforms.
Oof.
That's the problem.
Oh, like it is.
It would be different if you had a collection of garbage uniforms and you were just trying to like create a new one, but you don't. You had great uniforms, so we'll see.
Like that uniform. I still maintain.
Yeah.
If you're gonna bring me these crappy uniforms, bring back the mountains.
Yeah, dude.
Like, just.
You got to bring back an iconic one. You have
got to do something.
You have to.
Because you cannot, in my opinion, just roll out with that uniform.
It's garbage.
Man, dude, I don't.
And I understand. Listen, I understand that Ryan Smith needs to put a stamp on the organization and he needs to create his version of the Utah Jazz. And I get that. I don't even have a problem with it. But you got to understand the hand that feeds, and that is your fans. You know, that is ticket sales. That is jersey sales. That is, you know, all, like, again.
No, don't go there. Don't open the
But
door.
it's true, man.
Don't do it. Like, I just.
It's true.
I'm telling you, there is a lot of pressure on Ryan Smith right now. There is a lot of pressure on him. And whether it's these uniforms, whether it is the way that he's gone about player payment, like player compensation, if these are the uniforms and it's a disaster, what has he gotten right?
Yeah.
Ryan Smith, there's a lot of pressure on him right now. And he's learning. He's a new owner. I think it's why Danny Ainge is so incredibly important.
Yeah.
Because he is, he's the guy that's got the bug in the ear, man. Like, there's one guy that Ryan Smith knows, and it's Danny Ainge. Ryan Smith needs a win. Ryan Smith needs, and I mean a big win, holy cow, these are amazing. Oh my God, they did this and got this guy. And he needs a win right now.
Yeah.
Because they have not, if you pay attention to the Jazz, there's not been a whole lot of wins recently. On the floor, off the floor, it does not feel good to be a Jazz fan the last 6 months. This has been a tough stretch.
Yeah.
Right? This uniform that they're going to release here soon.
Yeah, hopefully they just need to get through the first, they need to get through the offseason with it. And then I think once you see it on the floor, that always helps. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Rhett Smith says, does Andre Iguodala play? I don't know, but he's been a really instrumental force in the locker room. Steve Kerr the other day was talking about how Andre Iguodala has been a mentor / coach to a lot of the guys on this club. And I think it's a huge impact. I think it's a huge contribution for him.
Yeah.
So, whether Iggy plays or not, he's having a huge role in what the Warriors are doing. So, Eric and Riley says the Jazz jerseys that leaked are basic practice jerseys. They really are.
Yeah.
They really are.
And I think that's what people have a problem with. You're going from, this beautiful white uniform with these gorgeous mountains on the front, and again, maybe that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it was an iconic uniform,
look at the dark jersey.
Yeah, the blue jersey. And I know you're not the biggest fan of the yellows, but again, at least those jerseys really lived up to it.
But the jerseys that they have been wearing this year, like the navy blue, the dark city edition with the floor, and they have some fire shirts, man. Their stuff is good. What they've cock teased us with is not good. This is terrible.
So don't even think about messing with me.
Right? No. Sorry, this is bad. No. George Mashika says, if Luka sometimes will give the ball to Brunson and play more off-ball movement, I think Golden State will lose in the paint this series. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Eric and Riley says, Ryan Smith fired Dennis Lindsey. He can coast on that for a couple of more years. Okay.
Hey.
Heard. That's a win. That's a win. Jeremy Moulton says, if they really do roll out with these new jerseys, who in the hell were they listening to? Guarantee 90% or more of fans will hate it. There's a lot of polling out there already, and fans hate those jerseys.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I'm surprised they haven't released them already, and I think that's part of the reason why. And I think
God, and you're gonna roll up to draft night in probably one of those, and are you gonna unveil it at the draft?
No, I think it's probably during the finals or right before the finals would be my guess.
Yeah.
It's either right before or right after the finals.
Yeah.
I think that, and I honestly think this could be a Friday night, 6:00 press release.
Yeah.
Because it's bad.